Hello YouTube, and come on in, you're just in time for the lunch hour. If you're new to my channel and don't know what the lunch hour is yet, it's one of the things I kind of do. I haven't done one in a little while. Is I basically pick a game or series in particular, and I pretty much just randomly talk about it, talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, and usually it leads to a point where I talk about what I'd like to see in a future title or so. And for this lunch hour, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Resident Evil. Now, I love Resident Evil back in the day because it was one of the first games I played on PlayStation back when I was super young and all that. And it was a great, fun experience. Not so much anymore, as most would probably agree with. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that. Resident Evil 1, I like the setting of it. It was, for those that don't know, you play as a member of STARS, which is a Special Tactics and Rescue Squad from Raccoon City. You're responding over to go ahead and help your other team members out who you lost contact with over in the mountain area over at this mansion. So you get over there, everything goes foobar, you get stuck there, and survival horror, you know, this is what brought it to the mainstream. You had to conserve ammo, always had enemies going around. But to make a possibly 15-minute long video talking about that, I'm just going to keep it short. I like the setting, I liked everything about it, the characters, the cheesiness of it. If you ever asked, like, Jill Sandwich and all that, that's where the reference came from. Fortunately, I never owned a GameCube because I was relying on parents back then. I didn't have my own money, I was way too young. So I never got to play the remake edition, which I'm kind of excited for. It's on my list of if I have money, I'll get it. So there might be videos about that if I do end up getting it for the Xbox One. And I never got to play Resident Evil Zero? Resident Evil Zero, which was actually the prequel. It talks a little bit about Bravo Team and Rebecca Chambers and what happened before the Alpha Team got there. Resident Evil 2 is where we got introduced to one of the mainstream characters and one of the more popular characters nowadays, which is Leon S. Kennedy. I've claimed hipster movement against him because I'm not entirely a fan of his character, with like no proper justification other than the fact that he sometimes in fandom outshines other characters like from Resident Evil 1, which is like Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, and all of them, which I like them a lot better than I did for Leon. But Resident Evil 2, and we're just going to go ahead and say Resident Evil 3 in here because it's happening at the same time. Resident Evil 2 and 3 happen at the same time. Resident Evil 2 you play as, again, Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield, who appeared for a couple more games and has been MIA until Revelations 2, apparently. And in Resident Evil 3 you play as Jill Valentine. Both of these are happening in Raccoon City at the same time. The whole city's going to hell. There's an outbreak. And it's more of the same. You got brand new environments, weapons, enemies, etc. All within the city environment, so you know, definite quasi-zombie apocalypse scenario going on with that. And what happened with 2 that was unique was that it had 2 discs. I think it was one of the first ones to start doing the 2 discs because you would play through the campaign once as one character, and if you still had the save and all that on the memory card, you plug in the other disc and you'd play as the other. So if you play as Leon first and then went through the other part of the campaign as Claire, there were certain aspects and decisions that happened within the first campaign. You may notice you pick up certain items or take them all or leave 1 or 2, and if you did, the other character would get them or not get them depending on what you did. And a few other things that also shines light on certain things that have been going on, etc. They may have noticed in the first campaign playthrough that you'll notice was the result of or you caused in the other playthrough. Now getting into more of the aspects of Resident Evil 3, first off, I love the intro. Go find the Resident Evil 3 intro, and it is fucking amazing to watch, and definitely got me pumped for the rest of the game pretty much. But they had their unique features. In particular was a crafting system where you're able to get gunpowder and all that and actually start to craft some of your own ammo, as well as get weapon parts and such to make new weapons from the new enemy Nemesis, who was basically, you know, he had kind of scripted events. He basically was optional encounters and all that to come and kick your ass throughout the entire game. And if you did manage to kill him, you would get rewarded for it by weapon parts and etc., which is fairly difficult. I don't remember it because I used Game Shark back in the day, and if you know what a Game Shark is, you're old just like me. And the next in the mainstream, I'm going to be, in case you haven't noticed, I'm only going to be talking about the mainstream first, and then the other half of the video so is going to be all about the spin-offs and all that. was Code Veronica X. That one didn't introduce anything really new that I recall. You played as Claire Redfield and Chris Redfield. And Claire Redfield had gone to an island to go ahead and stop Umbrella and all. Oh, no. She was captured by Umbrella and sent to that island. It was a prison island. And, of course, you know, being Umbrella, it was also used for experimentations on people and etc. And in typical fashion, things didn't go quite well. You know, virus gets out, everything goes to hell. Umbrella's not really good at containment policies, in case you haven't realized at this point. But it was another story. I enjoyed it, like all the other ones before it. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the game changer. I believe Resident Evil took a few-year break or so with a couple bad spin-offs, which again, talk about later. And we'll talk about Resident Evil 4, which now broke the mold of the previous ones, which all the previous ones before it were a fixed camera angle. They basically had certain areas you couldn't see things. It made it really great for jump scares and all that. Particularly in Resident Evil 3, you wouldn't see Nemesis coming really, except for, you know, when you actually noticed that the camera changed certain angles when it wasn't supposed to be. But now it was a over-the-shoulder third-person shooter. Another mold that they broke with this one was also, this was the first one that did not feature any form of virus. Within the previous ones, everything was always T-virus, G-virus, and all the shenanigans that followed because people kept using that. This one, you had a different thing. It was a parasite, Los Plagas. And with that, they introduced kind of new mechanics where if you, like, shot off the head or so, it would sprout something deadly. It'd sprout a little head, got a little fucking scythe and shit, and it would make the enemies more deadly, so the whole you're doing headshots and all that could actually, like, backfire in your face. Another new feature they did was they introduced, with their weapons and all that, there were now upgrade systems with them. You could upgrade the damage, the capacity, and all that. Eventually, once you upgrade it all the way, they'd have their own special features, particularly with the handguns. I recall the Punisher, which was the 5.7, it could penetrate up to 5 people, and your default handgun, which is the one I pretty much stuck with or so, had increased its critical multiplier, making headshots more likely to cause instant death instead of 1 or 2, and then they're finally dead. And overall, I very much enjoyed Resident Evil 4. And if you talk to some circles, it's pretty much, this is where it marks the downfall of Resident Evil as well, as we're going to talk about in the next few installations, which is Resident Evil 5, which looked good. You know, brought back Chris Redfield. I haven't seen that motherfucker in a while. And I was happy. He was one of my favorite characters. And you can tell they had to scrap the idea due to what the final game actually became. And the original idea, there was no Sheva or anything else. You could go find any of the original trailers on YouTube. And pretty much the whole, they caved into all this stupid racial bullcrap. That, you know, it was a white guy killing blacks and etc. And I don't know why they bothered caving into that. I don't know why anyone caves into anything with gaming related. Just, it's games. It happens. He's in Africa. But anyway, the final game was, Chris is a part of this organization, the BSAA, which is a funded, pretty much anti-bioterrorism unit. So he's over in Africa. Yeah, he has his new partner, Sheva, which is implementation of a campaign cooperation, which we haven't seen since Outbreak, which we'll talk about later. Now, it's fun in the sense that you're actually able to play Resident Evil friends, but in practicality, it made the game less scary, and also it made the AI really annoying, where they would borderline get killed and lose the mission for you, causing you to restart, etc. Other than the obvious features of co-op and all that, they had elements from Resident Evil 4, upgrade system, third-person shooter, melee, and all that. But story-wise and everything else, I was not a fan of this game. Most would say it's on and off, whether or not they liked it or didn't. And then, of course, now we're going to talk about Resident Evil 6. Now, Resident Evil 6 definitely put a nail in the coffin for a few people. Wasn't my favorite. Again, pretty much upgraded Resident Evil 5. 2-person co-op again, so you're always stuck with an AI guy with you. Implemented some kind of new skill system, and they took away weapon skill upgrades and all that, which I wasn't a fan of. Didn't really like the skill system either. overly complicated. Well, not really complicated, but I didn't hated having like stop. Okay, I should swap over these skills and all that, because part of the skill system was your unlimited ammo that you eventually unlocked was part of the skill system. So one of your skill spots had to be taken out by your unlimited ammo if you wanted to use unlimited ammo. So every time you wanted to use unlimited ammo with, you know, your guns and all that, but then you swap to another gun, it's like, oh, well, now I gotta go change my skills, because the handgun one's on this one, it's not on this one, and, I don't know, small gripes I'm talking about right there. And this one featured multiple campaigns, which was 4 altogether. There was Chris, Leon, Jake, and Ada's. Now, I played it when it first came out, so Ada's campaign was solo, and was unlocked after you had played the other 3. Hers was supposed to serve as a backstory and all that, like this was going on behind the scenes. Story was way too bloated, and not to mention, as with most people, they'll concur that they liked Leon's campaign the most because it had the most Resident Evil feel to it, whereas Chris's was bloated, actiony and all that, way too many enemies with guns. I hated this one. This one in particular because they had way too many enemies with guns. With Resident Evil 4 and 5, we had a few with guns, but other than that, they weren't overly excessive, whereas in this one there was a lot of people with guns and etc. Definitely more action-oriented, with new movesets and all that, being able to dive and such, which I kind of liked. I kind of liked the new movement system. Oh, you can move and shoot in this one as well. I should probably mention that. That was the first. All other ones you had to stand still and shoot. In this one you can move and shoot finally. Jake's campaign was also blah, and Ada's was again fun. And later on they implemented co-op, which I guess the co-op for Ada's actually was bugged for a little bit because the AI partner would get killed in certain segments because in-game cutscenes still had stuff going on and could get the other character killed because it's actually Ada moving, not the partner. So getting into what I would like to see done with the main series, I actually wouldn't like anything done with it. They done fucked it up, pretty much. They kept implementing new viruses and all that, which I failed to mention the other 2. They introduced another new parasite, and then the C virus, which was dumb. I didn't like their enemies and etc. So what I would actually like them to do with the main series, which a lot of people want this, they've been saying it, they've been screaming it at Capcom, and for whatever reason they choose not to listen to it, is they want a remastered edition of Resident Evil 2, which I am all for. I would love a remastered edition of Resident Evil 2. Whether or not they keep it as a fixed camera, I would like, or if they try to adopt the new over-the-shoulder to it, which I think is what they're really scared about. Slash, they don't want to go back to the old style, despite I'm pretty sure most people would be fine with it. The people that would buy it would be fine with it. And sticking with the new style, which would be hard for the old enemies because it's zombies, so technically headshots are supposed to kill them, and etc. Either way, not very good excuses either way. Just get on it. Now, on to part 2 of this. This is going on for actually a long time. I think this is going to be the longest launch hour ever done. The spin-offs of the Resident Evil series, which we're going to talk about, is ones that at least I've played / remember, is the Gun Survivor series, which there was 1 or 2 of those, and it's during this phase Capcom kind of had where they were trying to blend together playing the game and arcade light guns, you know, back in like the early through late 90s. For those of you that actually know that stuff, again, if you know that stuff, you're probably old like I am, which I'm not that old, but I'm pretty much am. I'm very old. And with that, you had a first-person experience. You're able to move around the character while doing first-person. And when you held down the aim button and all that, it would bring the cursor up on the screen, and then you would use that to shoot. It was kind of clunky and all that. It wasn't very well. I remember it, and kudos for trying it. No one else did, so there's that. Next on the list, which is a big one for me at least, because I enjoy these, was the Resident Evil Outbreak series. I made 2 of these. And this is the one that implemented melee weapons, introduced multiplayer and co-op, or, you know, both in the same experience. But that's where it got really fun. You played, it was offshoot, you were survivors within Raccoon City, various different people, like cop, security guard, simple bartender, subway station working guy, all that. You were all these various characters that all were pretty entertaining in their own right, running around basically trying to survive. You were able to play it on difficulties and all that. You had these different scenarios, which were your levels pretty much. They had their own checklists and all that to do. You could have certain events that appeared only once or twice during it, making more effort for multiple playthroughs on both. And again, this had co-op for it. You could go and play with, what is it? I think online it was up to 4 people, and if you're playing by yourself, you could bring up to 2 AIs with you. But either way, you can play with 4 people online. 3 or 4. I'm gonna safeguard myself. 3 or 4 people running around playing as different characters and all that to basically try to survive, and it was a fun experience. I liked it. The only downfall of it was, for whatever godforsaken reason, they didn't want to include voice chat, so you can only sit there and shout at each other pretty much the entire time, unless you're playing on like PC or something where you're actually able to like type messages. But either way, there was no form of communication. But both of those were really fun. And the final spin-off game I'm going to be talking about was Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. Now, this one was pretty much universally panned. It was a non-canon game developed by Zipper with Capcom Publishing. And for those that don't know what non-canon means, it means it's not relevant to the story and all that, so all the events that transpire in it are not to be taken literal and all that. And you got to play as the UBCS. No, the USS, Umbrella Secret Service, which are, their elite special forces type unit that they have that pretty much do all the dirty work. And you got to play from their perspective, going around covering up a bunch of the activities in Raccoon City. With this main kind of attraction was that you were going to be able to meet and kill players from Resident Evil 2 and 3. Now, in the story-wise, it didn't quite pan out that way. They only met us like halfway. We didn't really do a whole lot with that. They kind of like, no, you didn't do anything at least until the end, and even then, it's optional. It's kind of a buzzkill moment there. It didn't max out on the potential. It was 4-player co-op, which again, that was fun actually, because this was more of an action-oriented one, because you're an actual military unit, so that was fun. Getting a different hold, you're not helpless most of the time, except for when you're running out of ammo and everyone's out of ammo and there's only one ammo box, which they screwed up on that. I think that was a huge flaw in that, was the constant needing of ammo, and it wasn't shared, so the moment one person picked up, it was gone for everyone else. Another issue with their campaign was you fought a decent amount of human enemies, and I don't know what it is with Capcom, but whenever you fight human enemies, for those that have played Dead Rising or any other couple other games where you fight human enemies when you're supposed to be mainly fighting monsters, is human enemies are goddamn bullet sponges. And it is not fun when they're shooting you back and you are not a very good bullet sponge. The game, again, it flopped. They had a few DLCs though. We actually got to play as a special forces unit for the army. We got to go in. Those were actually quite fun because those had a lot more zombie-oriented levels. I found, it's particularly the second level had a great opening with a constant unlimited wave of zombies coming at you, and that was fun. I wish they had more implementation of that. Particularly also with the multiplayer section, which besides the campaign, which is a co-op, you had Versus, which is the Umbrella-verse army going on there, as well as the Heroes mode where you got to play as the heroes of the story, Leon, Jill, Nikolai, Ada, and Hunk, and all them, which I would have liked a co-op mode as well, an additional co-op survival mode. That would have been fun, because they had one that was Versus where you had to get on a helicopter and all that, and I would have preferred a co-op one as well of that. That would have been a lot more fun. Now, what I'd like to see from the spin-off section of the Resident Evil series is Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City 2. No, I'm kidding, that game wasn't... It was alright, but I enjoyed it a little bit. But no, in all seriousness, another Resident Evil Outbreak series. Seriously. With everything else coming out, the whole open world kind of ish games and all that, this is where I'm going to spin my whole Resident Evil Outbreak idea at you, YouTube. This is where I'm going to spin that. With Destiny, Division and all that, an Outbreak game with a semi-open world kind of environment would be a fucking fantastic idea. I'm not saying we need to have other people around, but, you know, get your usual party of 4 and all that. Let's see, Resident Evil... give me a second here, give me a second. Alright, so you got this town that was funded by Umbrella. Umbrella, of course, has gone under at this point. This is during the time of the BSAA. Before Resident Evil 5, we'll say. And there's a CDC there and all that. They have a emergency call. The BSAA team comes in. Because it turns out they've been holding some of the storage of the T-Virus and G-Virus there. An outbreak occurred. And everything goes to hell as the BSAA team arrives there. For whatever reason, they can't contact HQ. Because there's an ulterior force. I don't know, maybe someone with Las Plagas. Now we got Las Plagas enemies involved as well. And this is either going to go one of two directions how I want to picture it, which is either you get your own BSAA agent, you get to customize, have various different skills you choose, and weapons that you could have in your inventory and all that you have to earn / kind of purchase with points from playing the campaign scenarios. Or option 2, which is simply the same story scenario, but instead we get different characters and survivors to play as. Personally, I would like character customization, making our own BSAA agent, and etc. But either way, enemy-wise, definitely stick with fucking zombies and BOWs. No more... I said before Zero Vive because, you know, that was before Ouroboros bullcrap, before the C-Virus bullcrap. So we get our classic enemies that I liked shit tons better, that most of the fans probably enjoyed shit tons better. They could probably get their art team to come up with a few more cool new designs. Like I said, maybe throw in a Las Plagas antagonist that's behind the scenes and all that. So not only do we have our main bad guy to definitely have a final showdown with, but also a possible scenario or two with Las Plagas enemies involved, throwing in more to the mix. But that's finally going to end this lunch hour here, because this is the longest one I've done. I've been talking for like 20 some odd minutes now. So, like, comment, subscribe, definitely share the video and all that, you know, because Capcom needs to get their heads out of their asses a little bit there and jump on getting some ideas out there, because, you know, they're sitting on a gold mine of fucking game franchises, they're not doing anything about it. But I digress. You know, again, like, comment, subscribe. Twitter is down below in the description. Follow that if you ever want to follow me on updates. You know, fun little facts also posted there, such as this video was supposed to be done Sunday. And it clearly did not, because it's not Sunday. And, as always, you are welcome to come back over to GamingHouse for more gameplay and commentary.